Dear heads of state and delegations, I cordially welcome you to Tajikistan. We are always happy to welcome friends and partners in our country, with whom we share common interests and a desire to develop cooperation. I wish you a pleasant stay in Dushanbe and productive discussions and constructive solutions to all of us. I declare the next meeting of the Council of Heads of State of the Commonwealth of Independent States open. In the year of its chairmanship in the Commonwealth, Tajikistan, in close cooperation with the participating states and the Executive Committee, continued comprehensive work on the effective implementation of the set goals. Dozens of events of various levels and formats were held. Priority attention was given to the process of improving the organization's activities. Work continued on expanding trade and economic cooperation, developing transport and logistics connectivity, and digital integration. The humanitarian dimension was actively promoted. The floor is given to the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin. Thank you. I, as well as other colleagues, join in the words of gratitude to Emomali Rahmon and all our Tajik friends for organizing our work. It always requires some effort. We see that our Tajik hosts today have done everything to create the necessary conditions. As has been rightly noted more than once, over more than 3 decades, the Commonwealth of Independent States has established itself as an authoritative, regional, and integration association. And I think the most important thing is that we have managed to maintain a platform not just for communication, but to create a common market and a common humanitarian space. To a certain extent, in my opinion, it is very important for the citizens of our countries to preserve this, not just to preserve, but to build up the economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian ties that have developed over the years of living in the same state on a new basis. But nevertheless, this is the place to be. As for economic cooperation, the trade turnover between Russia and the CIS countries only in 2024, Kassy-Jomart Kemylovich Tokayev spoke about Kazakhstan. I can say about Russia. So the trade turnover between Russia and the CIS countries increased by 7% to $112 billion. Its structure is consistently improving, which, in my opinion, is extremely important. Moreover, the structure is improving due to the growth of the segment of products with high added value. I would like to point this out. It's just a medical fact, as they say. Our turnover is improving from year to year. Our countries are building a stable and independent financial infrastructure from external influences. Almost all mutual settlements are now carried out in national currencies. Their share in commercial transactions between the CIS countries in the first half of 2025 was 96%. This does not mean that we are abandoning the use of other payment instruments and currencies. It just increases our independence and sovereignty. This is an obvious thing, especially in the modern world. This makes it possible, regardless of the international situation, to expand commodity exchanges, make counter-investments, and develop its own capital market. I also listened attentively to Alexander Grigorievich Lukashenko's proposal to deepen our economic ties within the CIS. You and I are well aware of how our relations have developed here over the past 30 years. And it was no coincidence that the Eurasec emerged, because within the framework of the CIS, it was not possible to find such mechanisms that would be acceptable to all participants in this process. Therefore, a group of countries has emerged that have deepened trade and economic ties, and this is the Eurasec. And of course, the doors of the Eurasec are always open. My colleagues and I are talking about this one way or another. In my opinion, this is beneficial. It gives economic benefits. It opens up large markets at least, creates more conditions for cooperation, and in the end, it's useful. It's just useful. Absolutely perfect. However, the current situation has developed in a special way. But how much has the trade turnover jumped between Armenia and us now? What is the current trade turnover with Armenia?
В этом году уже 4 миллиарда долларов. Сколько? 4 миллиарда.
Нет, больше. It's already 4 billion this year. Last year it was about 9 billion. How much? No, more this year. There were more last year and there will be more this year. It's obviously simple. Well, it doesn't matter. It is important that, in general, the tools that we use within the EUROSEC provide an opportunity, even when the situation is unusual, but this can be used to realize the emerging opportunities. But if, as some colleagues and I are engaged in this dialogue, something can be done additionally within the CIS, then I agree with Alexander Grigorievich. Why not? If everyone wants to introduce some additional tools, mechanisms that deepen our cooperation, why not? We must strive for this because it is difficult not to agree that economic cooperation is at the heart of solving all other problems. And of course, we need to help our business structures of the Commonwealth to implement large-scale industrial and infrastructure projects. New Eurasian production and transport chains are being formed. Transcontinental logistics corridors, north-south, east-west, are being modernized and discussed. I also listened with interest to Kasim Jomart Kamilovich about the plans and the implementation of these plans in Kazakhstan. Of course, Kazakhstan, with such a vast territory, is in the center of the Commonwealth. In fact, it is a very important logistical opportunity for almost all our states. Import substitution processes are underway within the CIS, but as we now believe in Russia, and I think this is important for all of us, it is important not to replace something, but to be leaders somewhere, and not just somewhere, not on some periphery of development, but in key areas, and we have such opportunities. That's 100%. But it is necessary not only to be independent, but to lead certain areas. This is possible, bearing in mind our intellectual potential, which we inherited from the Soviet Union and, thank God, is actively developing today. Innovation, digitalization, and the integrated rational use of natural resources are important here, obviously. No one is arguing with this, of course. The fight against terrorism, extremism, corruption, and so on is also an important area of joint work among the Commonwealth states. We are doing everything to establish this cooperation in a number of areas. Therefore, we certainly support the documents that are being adopted today. These are the Anti-Terrorist Action Program, the Plan of Joint Measures for the Protection of External Borders, the updated concept of military cooperation, the Statement on Combating Transnational Crime, on combating money laundering, on strengthening energy security. And, of course, I cannot disagree. Ilham Haigarovich Aliyev said this about the importance of our cooperation on the humanitarian track. Our colleagues also mentioned sports competitions, and the Commonwealth Games have just been held in Azerbaijan. This is a great job, and of course it deserves all the attention and support from all our states. A large team of Russian athletes also participated in them. This year, all of us and our colleagues have already said almost everything about it, widely celebrated the 80th anniversary of victory in the Great Patriotic War. I would like to thank the leaders of the Commonwealth of Independent States who came to Moscow on May 9th. It is symbolic that on the day of the victory anniversary, units of the National Armed Forces of the CIS countries marched along Red Square, shoulder to shoulder with the Russian military, for which I also want to express my special thanks to you. We consider it important that our Commonwealth partners have also taken up the Russian proposal to establish the honorary title of City of Labor Glory. This title has already been awarded to 19 cities in 7 Commonwealth countries whose residents at one time made a special contribution to the overall victory over Nazism. We also coordinate our work on the foreign policy track, constantly checking our watches. This is an important job, taking into account the events that are taking place on the external circuit. In this regard, we consider the joint statement submitted today for the Council's approval on the occasion of the 80th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations to be very relevant. My colleagues also talked about it. And, like many present, we support the deepening of contacts between the Commonwealth and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The prepared draft decision on granting SCO observer status to the CIS is aimed at this. Indeed, it would be useful to make full use of the potential of cooperation between the two organizations to ensure the safe and sustainable development of our countries and the entire Eurasian region. We support the decision taken today in principle to create a new format of work, CIS Plus. This will make it possible to more actively involve other states and international structures in cooperation with our organization. And of course, we are grateful for the support of Sergei Lebedev's candidacy for the post of Secretary General. He is well known to everyone and has shown, in my opinion, by the results of his work that he is worthy to continue this activity in this position. Of course, I would also like to wish success to our Turkmen friends, who will assume the presidency of the Commonwealth in 2026. We have already talked about this informally. If you consider it possible, I would be very glad to see you in Russia, as we traditionally have in St. Petersburg at the end of this year, on the eve of the new year, for our informal meeting. And I have already exchanged information with some colleagues, informing them about the results of my work in Anchorage, Alaska, with the Americans regarding the settlement of the situation in Ukraine. We will have the opportunity to gather in a very narrow circle, and it is in such a narrow circle that I would like to inform you in more detail about the results, which we generally assess positively, and of course, our subsequent work on resolving the conflict in Ukraine is based on the principles that we discussed in Alaska. Thank you.